This past Sunday, we had the elections in Austria for their national parliament in Vienna, and in this video, I want to take a brief overview of the results for each party and also kind of an outlook at what the possible coalition talks are. And in the future, I will do more of an in-depth look at some of the demographics, the way the parties voted in each state, going into the elections in the Austrian states in October and in November. But in this video, I want to kind of give a brief overview and breakdown of what the results were on a very base level. Now, the Austrian People's Party of the Chancellor Karl Nehammer won 26.3%, down 11.1 points, a big loss. The Freedom Party of Austria, the FPÖ, won 28.9%, up 12.7 points. The Social Democratic Party of Austria, the SPÖ, won 21.1, down a tenth of a point. The Greens won 8.2%, down 5.7 points. The Liberal and Nihilist Party with 9.1 gained a point. The Satirical Beer Party gained 2 points, getting 2%. And there were some other parties, most notably the Communist Party of Austria won 2.4%, up 1.7. Now, if we take a look at these results, we can see, of course, there's a number of inferences that can be made. This was a big victory for the Freedom Party of Austria and a big defeat for the People's Party. Now, the Freedom Party of Austria won this election, and this is the first time that the Freedom Party has won first place in a national election. They won first place at the European Parliament elections in Austria last June, so that was their first nationwide victory. But this is their first place victory for the actual national parliament in Vienna, and so the victory was very big for the Freedom Party. They overperformed the polls by around a point and a half. And this 28.9% that they got was even greater than the amount of the vote they got in 1999. In the late 90s, their leader, Jörg Haider, was a very successful person within the party, and he basically changed the party from being equivalent to the FDP in Germany, being a more classical liberal party, to being a more right-wing nationalist populist party. And so in the 90s, they were very strong. And in 1999, they got a very strong result of around 27%, and beat the Austrian People's Party, the ÖVP, and actually came into the federal government for the first time under Haider's new kind of brand of the Freedom Party. So this result not only beats that record, this is the best number they've got, it's also the first time they got in first place in this national election. So up 12 points, and this is also a big recovery from the last elections in 2019 where the Freedom Party suffered a major scandal and only got around 16%. Now, the Austrian People's Party, this is a disastrous result for them. Well, it's a bad result, but it's not necessarily disastrous because 26.3% is an okay result. They are second place. They did drop from first to second, and they did lose around 11 points. So this is a historic defeat for the party, and this is the party of the Chancellor. However, this is not as low as they were expecting to get. In some polls earlier this year, or as in the years and months, a year prior and in the months prior, they were polling at around only 21%, and so there was the risk of them to fall below 20, maybe only get 19% and end up in third place. So 26% and in second place, although it's a major loss in support for the party, it's not maybe as disastrous as it could have been. And so this party, the Austrian People's Party, is the more centrist party on the right, whereas the Freedom Party is the more right-wing nationalist party. But they are both right-wing parties, competing over somewhat similar voters, but not too much of an overlap. They are comparable to the CDU and the AfD in Germany, but there are a lot of differences within both the parties themselves and also Austrian political society. There are major differences there. Now, the result for the Social Democrats might appear to be an okay result. They only lost a tenth of a point, but in reality, the result in 2019 was one of the party's worst election results ever, and the fact that they've underperformed that is very significant because the Social Democrats have been in the opposition. And in 2019, there was a scandal affecting the Freedom Party, the FPÖ, and in 2024, or rather a few years prior, there was a scandal affecting the People's Party, the ÖVP, in the lighter blue. And that means that the Social Democrats, despite being in the opposition and having scandals affect the other two major parties, they were not able to gain. Now, the Social Democratic Party of Austria nominated a more left-wing populist, a person from the more left wing of the party rather than in the establishment wing, and there was a lot of thought that maybe this would generate enthusiasm amongst the youth, and there are some areas where the Social Democrats gained, most notably in the city of Vienna itself. However, they stagnated around 21%, and this was a very bad result for them. And arguably, this is worse than what the People's Party got, because even though the Social Democrats only lost a tenth of a point, whereas the People's Party lost 11, the Social Democrats were in the opposition, so they weren't taking the blame for what was, they shouldn't have been taking the blame for what was happening in the government, and usually in parties in the opposition have a better chance at growing. And there was a scandal that affected the Freedom Party and the People's Party, so it should have been very easy for them to win this election Looking at polls a couple years ago, they were in the position to come first place. So them ending up in third, and this is the first time they've come in third place, is very significant. That is a defeat for the left wing of the party and also the party itself. So a kind of disastrous result here because this is a historic low for the party. Now the Greens won 8.2%. They did suffer major losses. They are a kind of minor party. They did win in 2019 with strong support, as did many Green parties did, in the rest of Europe. So this is not too significant. It's understandable that they will lose support, but 8.2% is still is still enough result for them to maintain seats and also play a role in the coalition talks. The Liberal Neos Party, which is the successor to another liberal party that split away from the Freedom Party after Jörg Haider kind of rebranded as a more right-wing party. They got 9.1%. They've kind of established themselves as the fifth party in Austria, so now there's kind of a five-party system, similar to what Germany has, but except with a kind of left-wing or far-left, left-wing populist parties such as the BSV or Die Linke party to the left of the SPD. You do have the Communist Party of Austria, which is active in most of the country and does have representation in a few Austrian state legislators, most notably Steiermark and Salzburg. So there are two Landtags where they have seats in, but they did not manage to reach the 4% threshold to win seats at the national parliament. Now, so if you take a look at the results, a big victory for the Freedom Party, a defeat for the People's Party, and just a stagnant, disastrous, missed opportunity for the Social Democrats. Now, if we take a look at the overall seats, the Austrian People's Party, of course, has the most seats with 57, followed by the People's Party with 51, then the Social Democrats with 41, the Greens have 16, and the Liberals have 18, and then the Greens have 16. Now, if we look at the possible coalitions, there are a lot of possible options here, but of course, we have to take into account that not all of these are going to be really, feasible because there is already talks about what is possible between the two parties. Now, the Freedom Party has won the election. They will have technically the formal role of forming a government or getting the first go at forming a government. However, that does not guarantee that Herbert Kickl, the leader of the Freedom Party, will become chancellor. Now, it is different than Germany. The Freedom Party, they are a right-wing nationalist party. They are seen as somewhat controversial and radical by elements of Austrian society. And the Social Democrats and the Greens and other parties have ruled out working with them. However, the difference here, as in where it is in compared to Germany, is it's not unprecedented. The Freedom Party has been in government before in the 1990s and around 2016. So, although parties have ruled out working with the Freedom Party, there is a precedent that they have worked with the Freedom Party before. Both the Austrian People's Party have worked with them on a federal level, but also the Social Democrats have worked with them in two states before. So, as of now, the parties have kind of ruled out electing, supporting Kickl as chancellor. However, it's not 100% out of the question that these parties won't end up working with the Freedom Party because indeed it has happened before under figures like Jörg Haider and Heinz-Christian Strache that were comparable to Kickl. In fact, Kickl himself was the former interior minister under the chancellor from the People's Party, Sebastian Kurz, when Heinz-Christian Strache was the deputy or the vice chancellor. So if we take a look at the actual mathematical, options, a broad right-wing coalition between the Freedom Party and the People's Party does have a mathematical majority, and in this case, Kickl would likely become chancellor. However, there is also the option for this to happen with Kickl not being chancellor. He has said that he wants to become chancellor, and then if he is offered another position, he will refuse that. However, of course, in 1999, when the Freedom Party beat the People's Party, they ended up forming a coalition together with the People's Party holding the position of chancellor. So that is possible. The Freedom Party also has a majority technically with the Social Democrats, but on a federal level, this is highly unlikely. You have another couple of options. The People's Party and the Greens, which is the current government, has lost their majority. And, of course, they could have included the Liberal Neos and have a coalition similar to the Jamaica coalition in Germany. However, they are short of a majority. Now, there is a possibility of the People's Party and the Social Democrats together. This is a traditional coalition that has been, very popular in Austria. Most of Austria's coalition governments going from the end of World War II until modern times has been between these two parties, usually with the Social Democrats commanding the chancellery. And if we see here, they do have enough for a majority, but only by one seat. And so this is going to be a very unstable government if it is formed. They're not going to have a large majority, which could provide them problems. So they could also include the Neos, which I think is possible for this constellation. The Greens are kind of seen as they've lost some of their popularity and support. And the People's Party will kind of want to work with both the center-left, but also not alienate the right-wing voters in their own party too much to bleed further support towards the Freedom Party. So this is a possible. Now the Social Democrats could not form a majority. One of the right-wing parties, either the Freedom Party or the People's Party, is going to be in the next government. The Freedom Party has the advantage of being the biggest party. The People's Party has the advantage of being in the middle and has the most partners. So either, it's likely that Karl Nehammer will remain as chancellor in a new constellation, but I would say it's not out of the question that Kikel becomes chancellor. I would say it's less than a 50% chance, but I would say it is still possible based on previous precedent. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is there are two state elections in Austria, one in Vorarlberg and one in Steiermark in later this year, and these elections will be somewhat affected by this result, and they also will be kind of bellwethers to see how Austrian politics is going to go in the future. Now, if the Freedom Party does not get into government, if all the parties block the Freedom Party, even though they won first place in the election, that might strengthen the Freedom Party, show that they are an anti-establishment, that the other parties are working together against them. You also might have people from certain parties vote in these state elections based off of the way the coalition talks have gone, and so these will kind of be checks to see how the mood is of the Austrian voters after these elections. Now, Vorarlberg is a state that the People's Party has been a stronghold in for a long time, and we can see that the Freedom Party is gaining here. They're expected to win a lot of support, but the People's Party will likely hold on. And so if the People's Party does very bad here, that could be kind of a signal to change in the party. And so this will be an important test. But the biggest one is in Steiermark, which will be held on the 24th of November. And what's interesting about this state is the Freedom Party is actually leading here, according to the last poll, which is very old. But this is a state that the Freedom Party has done historically well in. In fact, the Freedom Party won this state this time. In Steiermark, they won 32%, so around 4 points higher than the national average. And we could actually see an instance where the Freedom Party wins in this state and could put forward the governor, could actually elect a governor here. So the coalition talks will be somewhat influenced off of these elections, because if it goes in a direction that helps the Freedom Party even further, we could see them win this election, and then Mario Kunasek, the leader of the party in this state, could become the first governor of a state for the Freedom Party, since Jörg Haider was governor of Carinthia back in the late 90s and the early 2000s. So that is going to be it for this video. I just want to kind of give a brief overview of the results, and I will, of course, in the next few days, make a video, more in-depth look at the demographics, the way each state is voted, the way this election compares to historic elections, and of course I will also cover the coalition talks going on in Germany amongst the various East German states, but this is kind of just a brief intro to that. So if you do like these videos, please do like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you all for watching.